Greetings and salutations, Internet and it is Wolfphototech, and here we are with another delightful video. This time, we are covering Focus Spell Cards for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If you remember in a previous video, I've stated that there is 4 traditions of magic. There's 8 schools and 4 traditions, and then there's focus spells. Is that a school or a tradition? But actually, it's a totally another subcategory that overlaps traditions and in schools. It's actually kind of like a level below cantrip spell, but it also is a cantrip as well. It's a separate spellcasting mechanic in Pathfinder 2nd Edition that allows for a character to have... It operates on a point system. You start as a character with 0 points. 0 focus spell points. You have, if you're a spellcaster, you have whatever spell slots you have, whatever spells you have. But when you start a character at level 1, you have 0 focus spell points. You gain a feat or some class mechanic or whatever, and you gain a new focus spell. You gain 1 focus spell point, and you can have up to a maximum of 3 focus spell points. And whenever you take a little rest, a 10-minute break to meditate, to refocus yourself, you regain a focus spell point. Focus spells are weaker cantrips or equivalent to cantrips. They're either just below a cantrip in power level or at cantrip in power level. And then some of them are just a little bit more than a cantrip in a power level. But they're kind of like powers from Dungeons & Dragons, encounter power from Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition, where you can just use them over and over again, and you could just refocus, and you regain them all the time. And you can gain feats for your classes that allow you to not just simply gain 1 focus spell point back when you refocus, but you can gain 2 focus spell points back, or all 3, if you have spent up to that many focus spell points. And you max out at 3 unless there is a mechanic that breaks the barrier of the focus spell barrier up higher. Okay, so there you go. Focus spells are really cool, but they're oftentimes not terribly super powerful, but handy for a broad range of situations. And various classes, traditions, and schools of magic have a broad variety of focus spells. And if you have noticed, when I spun that around, there was a reason why I spun that top around. You see that there is the wizard, the druid, the cleric iconic, you got a monk, you got the sorcerer, and you got the bard and the champion. Because this happens to be where the monks and the champions have their spells in. Otherwise, champions don't have spells for the most part in Pathfinder. You happen to have, this is a basic little instruction card right here. There happens to be on the back side the legal card, because this is an OGL product and it legally requires there's information. You have the focus spell composition cantrip for bards. It's specifically to a class. So you see the keywords here. You got the name of it, and you got what level you gain the feat at to gain the focus spell composition cantrip. And then you have basic information like how many actions and so forth. And then you have the instructions on how the spell works. And this happens to be specifically a bard spell with the motion, enchantment, and mental tags, as well as uncommon, bard, and cantrip. Uncommon basically means the dungeon master has, the game master has to give you approval to use it, or approval to have it. There is counter performance card, and you see that there's a nice little variety. They happen to be these ones happen to be all bard, and I'm gonna slip through and get myself to the champion which is the replacement for the paladin. And then you have the champion cards. Uncommon, abjuration, champion. Components is somatic. What level you gain the feat at. And it's focus 6. Your little information down here, and then how the card works. And of course you got the champion on there. And then these are all champion cards until you get to... boop, 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 boop. That didn't take long because there's not a lot of champion spells. There's only that many champion focus spells. There's only like typically for each book or any major book there might be like another 4 or 5 champion, 4 or 5 focus spells added for some classes. But they're highly versatile. You happen to have a cleric one. Focus spells are more focused around classes as opposed to traditions. So you have cleric focus spells. It's one of the ways that Paizo customizes classes a little bit more in their spell casting is by having the unique spells be focus spells. Focus spells typically are weaker, but they do have a good amount of oomph to them at various levels. This is Charming Touch. It's one of those examples of a double-side card. Unlike the Dungeons & Dragons spellbook cards, they don't stick a tag down there that says, for more information, see page 245. So there you go. But then you have a whole bunch of cleric... I mean, this is a whole bunch of cleric spells. And I'm going to have to stop here for a moment and explain something really important out. That the cleric is easily one of the biggest classes for focus spells in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And there's a very good reason for that. I'm actually just sorting all the cleric focus spells out to get to the end. I'm going to pick up the rest. Pick up the rest. Do-do-do-do. Pick up the rest. Do-do-do. Where we just got through the paladin that only has a hand few. This is all the cleric focus spells. Focus spells are typically gained. Your lowest level focus spell is typically gained from their domain of magic. Cleric easily has the largest number of subclasses. Alternates, there's 2 subclasses for cleric, and then cleric has a type B, has a type A subclass and a type B subclass that stacks over the top. Your type A spellclass is whether you are a cloistered cleric or a war priest. You got 2 options there. You either be really good at melee early on, and then your abilities weaken farther, tailor off later on in the game, or you can be a weaker character earlier on with the cloistered cleric, but your spellcasting gets stronger later on, and you outpower the war cleric. And then there's the secondary subclass, which ties into your domains, what god you serve, and what spells you gain from that, and modifications to your class, like what weapon is added to your proficiency list because your god happens to wield a warhammer or a scimitar or a star knife. So the cleric is one of those cases where it's like the thickest class one for spells. For focus spells, it just has the most selection. And this one right here is Hurling Stone, Uncommon Attack, Cleric, Earth, Evocation. Got a Divination Fortune one, another Divination Fortune, Enchantment. Got one of those double side cards, Pulse of the City, which is actually a Uncommon Cleric Divination Scrying spell. So as I was saying, like in the case of like a lot of the focus spells are weaker or equal to the power level of cantrips, There are a few that are actually much more powerful than cantrips. And it's typically unlocked later on and with your feats. Pathfinder is highly customizable. And then we get into the back half of this, which we have now Lainey, the Druids cards. This is a focus spell for Druids. I happen to remember her name because she happens to be one of my favorites. I really love gnomes, and I really love Druids. Of course, I love all classes in all TTRPGs, even monks in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. But anyways, another example of a double-sided card. This is Wild Morph, to be specific. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. And then you got your monk. You got monk focus spells. Abrupt Step, Empty Body, Ki Blast, so you can Kamehameha your opponent. Ki Rush, so you can like shoot up on them really fast. Ki Strike, Quivering Palm. Ooh, the Quivering Palm. Wholeness of Body, Wild Wind Stance, Wind Jump, and then that's it for the monk. And then we happen to have the sorcerer, or sorceress in her case, Sione. And you have a beautiful selection of spells there. A lot of these spells are tied into their bloodline, but also their feats as well. So there you go. But you have a nice selection of sorcerer spells or sorcerer spells. And then you and you get to the wizard. Augment Summoning. So in some cases you actually have focus spells that are power boosters for other spells. Like you can, if you're conjuring something, before you conjure it, you can use a focus spell to boost your conjured creature or to buff your spell. Cool. In other ways, Call of the Grave. Yet again, more focus spells. So far, you can see the king or the queen of focus spells is the cleric, just because of all the domains means they have. So I say, yeah, this is like a 4+ star deck. It's made very well. The cards are nice and durable, but they're not indestructible, and they are also not the most durable cards there are, but they are good. So that's why it's not like a 5-star, and I'm really hesitant to ever get anything a 5-star. But they're a 4-star because I could at least list off, yes, it would be nice if they were more durable, and maybe if they were a size bigger, if they were a little bit bigger, with a little bit bigger text. That would be nice. But that's it. There's not much else to do. They can make the price cheaper, which is ridiculous. They're already pretty darn cheap as it is. This is by $24.99. That deck. They're cheap, but they're not super cheap. And of course, this is how Paizo makes their money, as they have their rules online for free. So you can go on to Archives of Nethys and look up all their spells and all their mechanics for free. Straight up to the newest stuff. Like, literally the newest stuff that just came out, like the Book of the Dead and Knights of Lastral. You can look up the stuff for that online. It's just that simple. Put the sheet back on. So the price being the way it is, it's understandable because that's how they make their money. And they give you so much stuff for free online. And they are pretty open to anyone making an app or anything, or bots or whatever, to do a thing. they're not going to sue you. You make a Discord bot for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Awesome. I want to know about it. So far, I've only come across a few Discord bots for Pathfinder 2nd Edition that are in the rough stages. But, you know, so there it is. 4-star box of cards. It would be nicer if the cards were more durable and were bigger. That's it. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and consider subscribing, and leave a comment below telling me what you like and what videos you want to see more of. And have a delightful day, a nice night, a wonderful week, and a magnificent month. And see you next time.